Hello everyone, welcome back to another Destiny 2 video. Today we're talking about the PC Gamer article that was released, had some interview stuff with Joe Blackburn as well as other members of the Bungie team, and we're just doing kind of a Spark note version today. I have some notes that I took from reading the article as opposed to going over the whole thing, but if you want to go over the whole thing, it will be in the description for you to do that. Highly recommend it if you want to look at everything. But there was some stuff that was in the showcase in this article, so if you watched the showcase already, watching this video might be a little bit better because I just mostly go over stuff that wasn't discussed in the showcase. Because, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's different about the final shape. There is some stuff that's similar, but, well, without further ado, let's get into it. So the focus of the final shape is more about the core fantasy of Destiny, right? No systemic changes like the ones we got in Lightfall, which is kind of good. I think that I'm not sure how it works at Bungie because, you know, this is a conversation that's been had way too often. We don't know how it works at Bungie, but, you know, were people taken off the narrative team to work on the systematic changes like loadouts and stuff that happened in Lightfall? I don't know. It's an assumption I'm sure people will make, but I'm going to stay away from that. So the core fantasy of Destiny, for Joe Blackburn at least, that's when weapons are good. Also, just a little sidebar here. Do we think that the seasonal weapons are just hot dog water because when the final shape comes out, you know, they're just gonna blow us away with the quality of the weapons, you know, kind of lowering the expectation with these seasonal weapons that are very, like, meh, and then when final shape comes out, are we gonna get, like, these god roll legendary weapons that are just so good? I mean, who knows? It could just be, you know, they've realized that there's too many good weapons, and introducing a couple that maybe aren't that great. I don't know what the thought process is. You know, I'm not really interested in the seasonal weapons so far. With that being said, you know, we'll have to see just how good the Crota's end weapons are. I'm sure they're going to be pretty good for the most part, but, you know, we'll see. We'll see. So yeah, power creep obviously I think is a real concern, especially without sunsetting. But Blackburn and Bungie together, right, have, you know, kind of put this vision into use that Destiny is in more of an eras kind of place where, you know how, this is the example Blackburn uses in the article, that when people would just reload with rifts and barricades, you know, that was kind of an era in Destiny that was cool and stuff. I mean, it was OP, right? You just put a barrier down and no one in your fire team has to reload. You put down a rift with lunafactions on and you can just spam any gun you want. I mean, yeah, that was insane. So yeah, I mean, obviously you want to have eras like this that kind of rotate the meta, keep everything fresh, because, you know, I don't know about you guys, but I hate using just cold comfort all the time for DPS. I'd love to be able to use machine guns here and there. Now, that was what was nice about Root of Nightmares, at least, was that for a while, and this is probably still the case, but Divinity and Thunderlord was a really good meta for him, especially because he moves around a lot. The div bubble kind of gives you a consistent point to damage, whereas rockets can be a little iffy, you know, if he teleports out of the way, you miss a rocket, whereas with Thunderlord you can stop firing until you see the div bubble come back up. So again, it's nice to see the meta shaken up here and there, although it doesn't happen all the time, right? Most of the time, a Galahorn and a rocket just work really well, but then again, you look at Samuma from Ghost of the Deep. Me and my fire team are consistently using LMGs. You can use linears if you're good with it, you know, throw on a targeting mod and you might not do that bad. Rockets are also something that could work. Specifically, tracking rockets. If you're not using a tracking rocket, yeah, that's gonna suck. So, you know, having the ability to have this meta be this fluid and to really use what's best when it comes to different situations. And I think with both Samuma and Nezarec being the most recent endgame bosses, yeah, I think it's safe to say that when the final shape comes around, whatever dungeon we get next season, the bosses are going to be moving. Maybe they'll get away from that, but it is a nice thing to see, and I know I'm kind of ranting here. So another way that Bungie is combating this power creep is making new weapon subtypes, right? To combat this kind of stagnation in the meta, if you will. There's, the small rocket sidearm that's coming in final shape. There's also the auto rifle healing subtype. We also got a new perk this season, which is heal clip, which might actually have some use in endgame content. A lot of people might be using it day one of Crota's end, especially if people are dying a lot. So that could be a fun little thing to see there. Also, it's awesome to have a place for support players to kind of focus their weaponry, right? Because support players, you can run healing grenades, you can be on Warlock, but aside from that, there isn't really much you can do. The new Radiant Super coming in final shape seems like it's going to be really nice for people who want to just majorly be healing, which is cool. So basically, this is a formula used in the article. Damage plus utility equals a good time. Which is well. Well is damage and utility boxed into one neat little bow. So, moving on. The Golden Gun like sniper will be in the energy slot. It's cool. I'm here for snipers. We don't really have a whole lot of exotic sniper rifles that are used in endgame. Cloud Strike and Izanagi's come to mind. Darcy, man oh man, does Darcy need a buff? Borealis, yeah, that gun. Rest in pepperoni. And aside from that, like Izanagi's and Cloud Strike are really the only two ones that I would bother using. So maybe this Golden Gun one will be nice. We'll just have to see how practical it is, to be honest. Next year, we already know that there's going to be a dungeon key. So we got 2 new dungeons confirmed for next year during the episode Saga of Destiny, but there's nothing on a reprised raid. And if I'm not certain, I could be wrong on this. I don't think there's a raid at all outlined in the roadmap for next year. So we might not even be getting a new raid next year. We'll have to see, but at least we know we're getting 2 dungeons, which is nice. The final shape has a theme, right? That theme, similar to the 80s action movie theme of Lightfall, and the detective special Witch Queen is going to be Lord of the Rings. It's going to be like Lord of the Rings, essentially. So does that mean the Witness is Sauron? The Guardian is Frodo, maybe? And this comparison makes sense. I mean, it makes total sense. Cade is Gandalf? Like, come on, son. He's White Cade. Okay, that... was he gray before? I guess not. Anyways. That's kind of cool. I love Lord of the Rings. And just a little side note for the Lord of the Rings fans out there. If you go look at I think it's anything on the Bungie store, but the ring for Crota's End, the description is keep it safe, keep it secret. Or keep it secret, keep it safe. I got it mixed up. You can yell at me in the comments. But yeah, that's cool. Keep it secret, keep it safe. So I think it's safe to say that the first 10 years of Destiny maybe weren't planned out all that well. And that's admitted in this article that Bungie wants a better plan for the next 10 years of Destiny than the last 10. Which is good that Bungie's admitting that maybe it wasn't great, considering everything that Bungie went through during those times. And, it isn't an excuse, but it kind of makes sense. The split with Activision and whatnot. Who knows what the real problems behind the scenes were during, like, the Activision issues that happened. But all we know is that going forward, Bungie wants to do better. We'll have to wait and see if that happens. But this is a good first step, admitting that the first 10 years maybe weren't the best that they could have been. And he also mentions how we shouldn't worry that Destiny is made by people who enjoy the game, and that if he were to say one thing to people who, about making Destiny, that's one thing, that it's made by a bunch of people that love the game, which makes me happy to hear that maybe the devs aren't as burned out as I had theorized. They're just really hyper-focused on making sure Final Shape is everything it needs to be, which is refreshing. But he also just, said that teaching people how to use the tools to make the game would also be something useful. And I think, it's kind of like, getting cross-trained. You really don't know what it's like to make the game, how the sausage is made. Because if everyone knew how Destiny was made, the process, right, you would understand it a whole lot better. You would have more appreciation for what the developers do. So that's something that would be neat, but probably will never happen. Something important to take into account when we're fighting the Witness, they can apparently, because they're a conglomerate of people, let's remember that, they can 1v1 anyone in the Destiny universe, which is pretty insane, right? To this point, I still think Rolk is the strongest entity we've taken down. Because, Nezarec was pretty strong, but he only had a slight measure of his power when we fought him. But considering the fact that Savathun was able to kill Nezarec and we were able to kill Savathun, there's a pretty good shot that we would have been able to defeat Nezarec in his pure form. But we don't know. He could be more powerful than Rolk. But Rolk was a little arrogant, and that's why we took him down. The Witness might just be a little distracted by its final goal, the Final Shape, and we might be able to just slip in and be like, you're done. You know what I mean? So, plus we're not 1v1ing him in the raid, at least in theory. We'll be 1v6ing him, which is better. Maybe not by much, but it's still better. So this is talked about in the article here, that a new enemy type isn't needed. And the reason for that is, red bar rank and file. A new red bar rank and file enemies won't change anything. And that's why Bungie's focused on enemies like Wyverns, Subjugators, and Tormentors, because they introduce a little bit more difficulty in endgame activities, while also introducing a new type of combat in the endgame, right? Whereas, it does make sense when you think about it, like putting in the production on red bar rank and final enemies, it doesn't make sense, right? I think creating cool endgame enemies is a good idea, because you get more usability out of them, maybe a little bit less than I'm thinking, but it is cool to see new enemy types, and I hope it's something they do in the next few years, is continue to do that, because champions are nice, but I think it's cool to have different types of endgame combatants that are really hard to take down and take a little more coordination. So this is a nice little touch, right? If you remember, in most of the time, the raid is used as the final kind of story point. Right, in King's Fall, I really think of this. You had the missions where you led up to killing Oryx, and then you kill Oryx in his throne world in King's Fall, which is a cool touch, because the raid is awesome. But the raid is essentially the last story mission, even though there was a lot of post-campaign stuff that happened, which is nice. I'm here for that. So the way that Final Shape will be structured is you're going to have 7 missions before the raid. Then, after the raid is completed, one final mission will unlock after the raid. Presumably dealing with whatever's left, or, I don't know. This last mission will be unlike the Callus and Savathun fights that we had in the previous 2 DLCs. So it'll be interesting to see how this works out. It, quote, didn't pass the sniff test, unquote, is what Blackburn said in the article when they did the witness fight, and it was similar to the Callus and Savathun fights. So yeah, let's hope it's like a long, drawn-out battle that has twists and turns, and I don't know, that's what I want anyways. It should be fun regardless, but we'll see. The episodes, by the way, moving on to that, they are meant to have more story depth. They will, again, be standalone pieces as opposed to the more serialized storytelling that we have at the moment, which could be nice to, shake things up. And last but not least, there is going to be more of a push to balance PvP and PvE overall. I remain skeptical because we've heard these things before, and, just wait to see it. I'm not saying we won't, I'm just saying that's what I'm gonna do. So, we move on from there. All this stuff sounds really fun and interesting, and I definitely think that the final shape is shaping up to be fantastic. I'm sure there's stuff we don't even know yet, and that's a little refreshing, and that's how it should be. And ultimately, I'm excited for Kay to come back as Gandalf and to have one final mission with this crew, and it should be fun. We'll see. I'm remaining skeptical, ever so skeptical. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you haven't already, comment down below what you're most excited about so far for the final shape. I will be streaming Starfield this weekend if you want to go to my Twitch channel below in the comments. I'll be doing that. I'll also be streaming the Day 1 raid as well. It's going to be a good time this weekend. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.